And we're back at it again with another live one for all you Biconics wrestling YouTube fanatics out there. And welcome to another exciting episode of Table for Two Electric Boogaloo, your weekly Impact Wrestling review show. I am one of the hosts, Mikey, and joined with me, as always, for these reviews is my other lovely co host, Will. Will, how are you, my friend?
I am grand. Truly. I'm good. I'm in a great place. I'm ready to talk about this episode.
So,
Yes.
let's just put this all out on Front Street, right? So this is me and Will briefly, like, we talked about this off camera, but when we first heard that the 1000th episode of Impact Wrestling was happening after the Victory Road pay-per-view and how solid that pay-per-view was, you should go check out a review of it. Both of us got excited. I was excited because as someone who's been watching Impact Wrestling for a little bit and knows of the history, I was excited to see all the people come back, all the matches past and present we were going to get, all the things that they announced for it. It had me hyped. And, Will is new to Impact, but he was excited too. You were excited when we went through everything that got announced for the 1000th episode of Impact. You are muted.
What? I don't know why he keeps doing that. Anyway, I'm new to this, but I've gotten pretty invested in the few episodes that I've seen so far, and the storylines and the flow through and all that. And the last episode that we reviewed, which you should all go watch. They hyped this 1000th episode so much. And it wasn't just like, hey, join us for the 1000th episode. It was like, the 1000th episode, it's going to be amazing. Come and see it, check it out. It was like huge. And I was like, oh, this is going to be freaking amazing. I'm like, hell yeah. And yeah, it was definitely something. At least the first half of it, because it's split into two, which I was not aware of originally. And I was like, when Mikey told me that, I was like, oh, thank God, because if what we saw now was the complete 1000th episode, I would want my money back, truly, because. Now, don't get me wrong, and we're going to talk about it as we go into it. I didn't hate the episode. Okay, that is not what's going on. I did not hate the episode. There were some great moments in it. It was just a lot of something, but yeah. So I watched it. I enjoyed parts of it, and majority of it I did not, and that's okay. Nothing wrong with that. So, but yeah, so that's me.
So I am in agreement with my co-host. I was really, really excited, for this. And, after watching this first half, I was a little underwhelmed. I still enjoyed parts of it, but from the actual matches themselves, outside of the main event, and then the overall programming was kind of weird too. The way that we paced the episode, where certain things were placed, how they used a lot of the TNA legends, so to speak, was kind of weird too. But again, when I found out that it was going to be broken up over the next 2 weeks, I'm like, oh, thank goodness, because this first half was not it, sis. And honestly, based on what we got on paper for next week, I'm just like, honestly, y'all are going to. Oof. Please let it be great. Please let it be good.
But honestly and truly, I thought what we were going to get in this first half was going to be pretty spectacular.
I did too, and then I was like, oh, okay.
It wasn't. Parts of it were. Aspects of it were actually really good. But if the second half is anything like the first half, I think I'm gonna be disappointed. And it's just gonna be like, oh god, here we go again.
Right. And I unapologetically love Impact because most of the time they do pretty good stuff, but this was okay. It was an okay episode. Again, it wasn't horrible because there have been worse things I've
No.
watched this week,
Mm-hmm.
but it was just okay. Now, if this first segment was like maybe like 5 to 7 minutes shorter, I think it would have been awesome. But this was a 20-minute, two commercial break segment. So we opened up the 1,000th episode. Shout out to the production team because that intro video package and then them playing like the original Impact Wrestling / TNA theme song for when the company first
Mm-hmm.
began was a beautiful touch, and just the different variations of the logos and styles that Impact Wrestling has had. That intro video into, what we normally get
Yeah,
instead of our regular theme song, we got the original one, and I thought it was beautiful. The video package with the monologue was, oh my god, that was awesome.
it was.
I
It
was
was so
nostalgic.
good.
I was like, oh
It
god,
was
this
so good, and it got me hyped. And then it lied to me. Like truly, I felt lied to.
in the words of
Then,
Maxine Waters, the politician, I'm here to reclaim my time.
yeah, because oof,
This first segment went on long. So as soon as we get this video package, we don't even cut to like what they normally do for Impact with the audience cheering for a couple seconds and then getting into it. We just jump straight into Impact President Scott D'Amore, who, talks about getting to 1,000th episodes and reminisces on how they got here. Episode 1 of Impact was him and Eric Young and the rest of Team Canada as wrestlers, and they opened up the first ever Impact and then just going through and just reminiscing about it. I will say, though the segment went long, I did appreciate he said, and nothing like Scott D'Amore put the women on the pedestal, which I was like, this is why you are my favorite president / owner of any of the wrestling companies out there. Cause oh my gosh, the women were awesome in this segment, even though it went on a little too long. And then, of course, Scott D'Amore's This Knockouts division has seen so many women come through these doors and have been amazing, but none of them more as this person. And then Scott D'Amore introduces the head of the women's division in Impact, Ms. Gail Kim, and I will admit I cried because Gail Kim is my favorite female wrestler of all times.
and she's beautiful.
God, she is. Oh my! I mean,
She's classy.
Yes, I. What I love about Gail Kim is, I mean, her career. Obviously, she is beautiful, but even though she has retired from the wrestling ring, she still will cut a bitch, and I love it. Like
And
she
she's
will.
Asian.
Yes, and that is the important thing too. And
Yes.
she oh my goodness. She is an inspiration to me because she was one of the first like non-white wrestlers that I gravitated towards like back in the day when she was in WWE. And then when she went to TNA, which is what Impact was called before Impact, her and Awesome Kong, who we'll talk about later, had the best rivalry in the women's division, not just for TNA, but for any women's programming across any of the shows at that time. Both her and Awesome Kong are always like my favorite female wrestlers that literally paved the way for pretty much are always cited by all the wrestlers across the brands as inspirations. And you know what? Deservedly so. Gail Kim got to talk about the women's division. And what I love is she's a class act because she didn't talk about herself. She talked about like these women have paved the way for future generations. And yes, I may have opened a lot of the doors, but these girls have continued to break glass ceilings and kick down the barriers and doors, even in places I never thought was possible. But these girls are inspiration to me, and I'm excited to celebrate the past and the present. And then cue the onslaught of people, these women coming down to the ring. So we first listen, I know they're not everybody's cup of tea, but I will be the first to admit they played a big part in the early day of TNA's. You had Velvet Sky and Angelina Love of The Beautiful People come out.
Yeah.
I was like,
Oh my
"Oh god,
god.
they're still wearing the trashy mini skirts like they did." I was like, "That's totally a sta." Listen, I popped hard for the beautiful people. I was like, they weren't the best wrestling tag team, but it was during an era where, let's put women in skimpy clothing, and I actually was okay with it, but not like in a sexual way. I was just like, they were just the mean girls, and I loved it. And of course, they're still mean girls even at this day and age because they basically tried to run down Kim with insults, and then again, Kim will cut a bitch, and she like read them for filth too. I was like, I'm here. I'm like old school TNA vibes. I'm here for it.
Yeah, me too. I really enjoyed, and I really hated those two, but in a good way.
Exactly.
And and I loved. Yeah, they just came up in there. I was like, oh my sweet Jesus. I was just like, who the hell is this? And then I saw their names come up on the screen, and I was like, are you fucking kidding me? And then they opened their mouths, and I was like, oh, this is horribly the most amazing thing I've ever seen in my life. And I was like, oh God. And let me tell you, they were in it. They were character 1,000%, not even 100, 1,000% from beginning to end. Never once did you see them drop it. I mean, they were like, we are the beautiful people. And everybody else is just ugly. And I was just like, God almighty. And then they were like, especially when they said it to Miss Kim, I was like,
Cut a bitch, Kim.
I'm
Cut a
sorry,
bitch.
what?
That's what I
It's
said.
like,
I was just like, I know it's in script, but no.
I know, me too. I was like, I get that you're supposed to be talking about other people that aren't you, but are you looking at the same person I'm looking at? Because she ain't ugly. Girl, she outshines you. That woman is like classy perfection. You are like, trash. Euro trash almost. So I was just like, I loved that whole thing. I loved this whole women's sequence. I did. The only thing that I was telling Mikey off camera is it just went too long. But I loved all of it because it got to the point where it was like, okay, who else is coming out? Okay, somebody else is coming out. Okay, somebody else is coming out. All right, who's coming out next? All right, who's gonna be? It's like it really kind of got there. I mean, it was exciting every time someone came in and they added their own spice to the soup. But it was like, okay, we got to stop. We got to stop now and move on to the next thing. I
Right.
mean, it just went a little too long. It's like, you know, like we say in theater. It's like, tell us what you're going to tell us, and then tell us what you told us, and then move on. That's it. Just get all the women in the thing, let them say a few things to each other, and go. Well, guess what, everybody? We're going to have this multi woman, knockout match, in 2 weeks or whenever it is, and or next. What is it? It's next episode, right? I'm assuming it's in the second half. I think, right? Yeah, it's in the second
Yeah. That better.
half. And
I'm not gonna lie. They better main event.
yeah, and I mean, it's like just get on. Tell us what you want. Tell us what we want to know. I love all the rivalry, the old rivalries. I do. I love all that stuff. But I want you to tell me what I know. I already know, but I want you to tell me. Make it official that these women are going to get in the ring and whoop each other's asses. Please tell me that. It's like move on. Tell me what I need to know, and let's get on to the next thing. It
Right.
just went on too long. I got to the point where I was just like, can I fast forward?
This was a 20-minute segment, and I timed it out because I was like, we went through 2 commercial breaks. It was
Yeah,
crazy. I mean, I enjoyed it because
yeah.
they picked the right women to be in this women's match like next week that I'm excited. But I'm going to briefly give the Spark Notes version of this. So we started off with Gail Kim and the Beautiful People. Then comes out the quintessential diva herself, Giselle Shaw, with Savannah Evans and Jay Vidal, who we'll talk about during that Feast or Fired match because I had to pause my screen because I was laughing so
Oh my god.
fucking hard. Jesus. Listen, Jay made part of that match, and we will talk about it. I broke Will already. It's great.
There's a lot of laughable moments in that
We
match.
will to get into it because it has some of my favorites.
Oh
But
my
Giselle
god.
comes out and she sides with the beautiful people. Then Jordan comes out and sides with Gail Kim. Gianna comes out. She doesn't necessarily side with Giselle and the beautiful people, but she's on their team because I this part made me laugh because because then as soon as Deanna comes out, then Trinity comes out, my girl, love me some Trinity. And this was my favorite part of the exchange. Trinity hypes up that she's excited and she says that, Deanna, I've beaten you and I took your title. And then this is what I love. This is my favorite part. Deanna tells Trinity, she's like, girl, come talk to me when you've had 4 title reigns. And then Gail Kim came in with the knife and just massacred Deanna. She's like, honey, come talk to me when you've had 7. I was like,
7.
yes, Gail
I was like,
Kim.
tell her, girl. I was
I
like,
was Nobody has even gotten close to having the number of title reigns that Gail Kim has had in Impact and TNA. I was just like, Gail Kim still got it.
and that should have been the end of it right there. That should have been the last thing. Once everybody, get everybody in there and then throw that as your final thing. And I mean, I know we don't have other women coming in, but like, I would have saved Deanna her for the end. Bring her at the end and let her do all her, and then let Miss Gail King go, bam, and then be like, all right, I guess we're going to have a match, and then move on.
Yeah, honestly, I would have liked that because the way that we got it was not great. So,
No,
as soon as this interaction happens, then my other fave, Awesome Kong, comes out with her valet. Which, by the way, I love the nod to like the Chinese culture like that because her valet is of Asian descent as well. So like the full on like geesh of the mask and the dress. Listen, we don't normally talk about fashion in wrestling right now, but let me tell you, Awesome Kong's like mouthpiece slash manager has always been my favorite in terms of like the way that you take cultural garb and make it fashion for a wrestling character.
yeah,
Listen, it's been one of my favorites, and I love Awesome Kong too. She is great. And then as soon as because we knew that Awesome Kong was coming back because they advertised it. Then we get the 2 surprises, and I can't speak for my co-host, but for me personally, as somebody who has watched Impact for a very long time, I was happy first to see my Puerto Rican princess Tasha Steelz come back in that new laid hair and the braids. I was like, yes. Listen, I loved her old haircut, but I don't want to say she didn't look beautiful before, but it gives her a different edge than when she came out in the braids. I was just like, Tasha, I love you. You are my lesbian princess, my Puerto Rican lesbian, because she is out and proud lesbian. So I love her so much.
yay.
And outfit was on point. I missed her on my screen. And then hardcore country kicks in, and I screamed at my television because Mickey James is back on my TV screen. And last time I saw her, she was out on injury. She was supposed to face Deanna and Jordan for the Knockouts title because Mickey James was champion, but because of injury, she had to vacate that title. And now she is cleared, and she is back in Impact to wrestle for one more ride. I was like, hell to the yes, Mickey James. Hardcore country at its finest.
Yeah, that was pretty cool.
And then the segment kind of ended in a poot because then everybody's just facing off against each other. And then I was like, oh, okay, well, the commentary had to explain like later in the show, oh, we're going to have this 5-on-5 women's match. I was like, nobody said that during the actual thing.
No, and that's what I was saying. I was just like, what is happening right now? They did this 20-minute thing with all these kick-ass women facing off to each other, and they even like had them on opposite sides of the ring facing off at each other at this lovely angle. And I was like, that is a beautiful picture. And then it was over. And I was like, what the fuck? I was like, are we getting something? I mean, I literally felt like I was gypped. I mean, I knew what was going to happen. I knew that they're setting it up for a big match, but I'm like, they never said anything. It literally just ended, and then it went on to the next thing. And I think there was a commercial, wasn't there, or a backstage thing? Something happened. Switch.
So we would get confirmation later, but what this sets up is for next week. It is going to be a 5-on-5 knockouts match. So we have on team good guys, so the faces, if you will. It is Jordan Grace, your Impact champion Trinity. You also have Mickey James, and then you have Gail Kim and Awesome Kong on that side. So those two are returning to the ring. This will be Gail's first match in 4 years since saying goodbye to the wrestling ring. And listen, I'm gonna have some tissues when we review next week because I will be crying. I will
That's
be
fair.
crying, and I will probably cry because watching Gail Kim get to wrestle again makes me so happy in this
That's
day and
cool.
age.
No, I think that's very good.
I will
Good
also
to
cry to see Awesome Kong back in the ring. I'm like, oh my god, I love it. If you haven't checked out Awesome Khan in the cut way too short Netflix program Glow, because she was one of the main characters in there, is such a good series. Because Glow is based off of like the promotion of the same name that was an all women's promotion in the 70s and 80s. I don't want to say Will remembers it because I'm not saying
I
he's
do
old,
remember it.
but
I do remember it. I do remember it indeed.
back in my day,
Yep. Back in my day.
I don't like to call people old. It makes it. I'm like I don't want to because it feels bad. I feel bad.
You didn't
You are
call me
well
old.
seasoned in life, as I like to call it.
Okay, that's a good one, I guess.
So again, this women's segment ended on a weird note, and then things got weirder because this backstage segment made no sense to me. So we had Eric Young, America's Most Wanted, which is a big tag team in Impact's history. Santino Marella and Shark Boy, like this should have been comedy gold because these four have a propensity to be funny as hell. This was not funny, and it made no
Oh,
sense, and it
it
kind of
was.
lingered too long for me.
I literally have this is dumb. I believe I said that last episode as well. This was dumb, and this was dumber than the last from the thing from last episode. This was just dumb. Made no sense. Did not push the story forward. It introduced. I mean, all it did was introduce Shark Boy or whatever, and then the more veteran folks. But I was just like, why?
Why?
I mean, and Mikey knows because I've talked to him off recordings before about how much I actually really enjoy Impact. I think they tell a really good story. They really do. They, for the most part, they are really good at telling a story and keeping things the continuity of things going and the flow going. And this just it was like hitting a roadblock. And we already came out of this women's thing and didn't get anything out of that other than hero worship, which nothing wrong with that. But then we didn't get any. There was no payoff to it until later in the episode. Then we get to this thing backstage, and I was like, okay, this is cool. They're going to do like a. I was thinking they're going to do like let's introduce some veterans, and do some fun little skits backstage. And I was like, that's cool. But this one, I didn't understand this one at all. I mean, it didn't serve any purpose. I mean, at all. I mean, come on. I
No.
mean, truly.
The only thing we really got out of it, and it didn't really come into play until later in the show, where Santino made Shark Boy like his unofficial deputy for the next couple weeks, which was like, okay, cool. I wanted more from America's Most Wanted because they're a badass tag team, and James Storm, the one in the cowboy hat,
You know,
like he is a wrestling icon, and honestly, he's one
right.
of my favorite legends ever across any promotion. And that's saying a lot because I love me some Sting and I love some other vets. But this skit was not great. Again, the only thing that came out of this is Santino made Shark Boy his little deputy, but that didn't come into play to like almost to the close to the end of the show, anyways. But mind you, but it was weird, and I felt like they could have used them better. But this
I
is
don't think they used any of the veterans that well.
that's very true. And this was like the first 30 minutes, Will. I was like, oh God. I was like, this was not a great start. And that it was at this point that I started to worry for the rest of the show. I'm like, oh my God, I hope it's not as bad because I was this close to like turning it off. I was like, okay, I don't care. Like, I'll catch this later. I was like, I'm going to bed. Like, the 30 minutes of my time has been wasted. And then the mood kind of shifted because after 30 minutes, we get to our first official match of the 1000th episode, which is the Feast or Fired match. We will talk about all the fun shenanigans and crazy ass shit that we witnessed because this was chaotic and hilarious, and I live for the campiness of it all. But before we do that, for those of you who are watching and are not familiar with what a feast or fired match is, essentially it's a modification of a on a pole match. So on a pole matches is where you stick something high on a truss or a large pole, and your goal is to grab said thing off the pole. And various iterations are like you have to hit if it's a kendo stick on a pole match, you win by getting the kendo stick and hitting your opponent with it. Uh, if we remember back in the day of WWF and WCW, we had a mom on a pole match where one of the wrestlers' moms was on a forklift and they had to reach her. God, that was awful. Um, but for Feast or Fired, there are 4 different briefcases placed around the 4 corners of the ring. And the goal is what, and I love that they made sure to explain this rule because some people forget. Your goal is to grab the briefcase, but in order to claim it as yours, you have to touch the floor of the mat, not the floor of the ring. You had to make your way outside the ring and touch the floor. And we'll talk about some of the creative ways that people got to the floor because Chris Bay's was still one of my favorites.
Yeah.
Though I laughed the hardest at Moose's, and we'll talk about it a little bit. So again, we had like just a bunch of men around the ring fighting. And so we'll go through some of the favorite spots, but ultimately the first person to get their briefcase is Chris Bay, and he literally jumps off the second rope and like Tress falls into everybody to claim his, which was fun. Crazy Steve threatened everybody with the fork.
He stabbed what's his
He
name?
stabbed somebody.
Yeah, oh my gosh.
I forgot who he stabbed because I watched it on DirecTV, and this was the first time, if I can remember correctly, where Impact went picture in picture. I'm like, no, not you two, Impact. I was like, don't do picture in picture. I forgot who he stabbed, but yeah, he threatened everybody else with the fork, which I really love. So Crazy Steve
I will have to say though, when he was trying to fish that fork out of his boot, it did take a long time for him to get it out.
Crazy Steve was like having trouble, but it was great. So Crazy Steve got the second one. Our boy Yuya Uemura got the third briefcase in what was a fun, we'll talk about it in a bit, like back and forth he had with his tag team partner.
Myers, that's who it is.
Brian Myers deserved to be stabbed.
I know who it is. I know who it is. I was like,
Brian Myers deserved to be stabbed. In character, not the actual person.
Yeah, absolutely.
And then the final person to get the fourth briefcase technically was Moose because we'll talk about it. Steve Macklin technically had that briefcase, and then God, he chucked that shit so hard. I was like, oh, someone got hit.
Somebody hit him. Who hit him?
I think it was
all over the place.
I'm trying to think. I think it was Sammy Callahan. I think it was Sammy Callahan who
could have been Callahan
who knocked Macklin so hard that Macklin chucked that briefcase
behind him.
I was like, oh God, somebody got hit.
Yeah.
And then Moose caught it. It was hilarious. Yep. So some of my favorite spots in this match, Kushida, anytime Kushida and Kevin Knight teamed up was amazing.
Oh yeah, that was really
my God, when Kevin Knight jumped off the second rope and got some height in that arc to hit Steve Macklin, I was just like, oh God, that is a thing of beauty.
Oh yeah, it was.
Let's see what else. Crazy Steve stabbing people was hilarious. What else was there? The hot potato between Joya was hilarious with the briefcase. Let's see.
Yeah, I like that. That was fun.
Just watching Black Taurus like slam into the mat after Kevin Knight does a head scissors to him was.
Oh yeah,
Kevin Knight was MVP for me in this episode. In this match,
he was, and I agree. And I got excited because I saw that they matched him up with someone that I think that I think will actually be a good fight. When they announced it later, I think they announced it a little later on, but it was I don't remember who it was, but I was like, oh my gosh, he's actually going to fight someone that he doesn't have to hold up the whole time.
And then, of course, my other favorite moment was just the whole finishing sequence of Steve Macklin like threatening to smash everybody with the briefcase. Sammy Callahan making him chuck it so far out of the ring that Moose caught it and Moose technically won.
Yep. Yeah.
Steve Macklin, man, this whole match was fun. So we want. We also got confirmation later in the show that we will get the results of the briefcases next week. So just as a reminder, in these 4 briefcases are the following. One of these briefcases holds a contract for an Impact World Championship match at any time. So they will be facing Alex Shelley at some point for that title. So that's the main title. Another briefcase holds a contract for the X Division Championship, which at the time this match happened would be facing champion Leo Rush, but that's no longer a thing. And we'll talk about it. The another briefcase holds a contract for a tag team championship match, so they will face off against the Rascals for the titles at some point. And then one of the briefcases holds a pink slip where that person will get fired from Impact Wrestling. So, I briefly mentioned this off camera to Will when we were briefly going over how we were going to do this review. All I'm just going to say is if Yuya Uemura gets that pink slip, I will cry.
Oh, me too.
I will turn off my television. I will turn off my television and then sadly turn it back on because we have a review to do.
But I think it's I hope it's not either. That was mine too. I was like, it better not because I need my Joya. But I personally, I think Moose might have it.
Honestly, I wouldn't be surprised if Moose gets fired and then we turn it into a whole storyline where Moose is not there and Brian Myers gets his ass beat every week.
Yeah, because isn't it who's his tag team partner all the time? Is it Macklin?
So Moose and Brian Myers are current tag team, but Moose and Macklin have history, and the fact that Macklin lost that briefcase too.
Yeah, see, that's what I was thinking.
There may be a story that we might build since Josh is currently, because we got Macklin versus Josh, which is the match we were supposed to get when Macklin and Josh, when Josh was champion, but since both of them got hurt,
right,
we had to put a pause on that. So now that we got that match, I think Macklin versus Moose for a little bit would be good because there's history there. Mm-hmm. And then it keeps Macklin busy while Josh, as we'll see later, looks to be getting back into the title picture because him and Alex Shelley are about to wrestle in some sort of capacity. But we'll talk about that when we get to that segment.
Yeah.
But yeah, that'd be hilarious if Moose got it. I don't want Yuya to get it because I don't want Joya to break up. Wouldn't that be something if Yuya has that tag team contract and it's Joya versus the Rascals? I'm here for it.
I would be here for that. I would literally be here for that. Now the other one that could have the pink slip could be Crazy Steve, but I don't know that they would do that because he just reinvented himself.
So in my opinion, this is how I would love to see it, just because of my own personal preference. Just because I think the story would be good, I think the pink slip should go to Moose. Yuya should have the tag team championship contract so Joya can face the Rascals. I think Crazy Steve should get the X Division contract, which means, and I would love this, let's get Chris Bay versus Alex Shelley is money. Money, I tell you, William. I would love to see Chris Bay finally get a shot at the main championship because he's been X Division champion, tag team champion. Like, I think Chris Bay is ready to be pushed into the main event scene now.
Okay, that I could go with that. Absolutely. Yeah, they better not break up my Joya. I'm gonna be so pissed.
Again, I'll turn off my television and then crying through my tears, turn it back on because we have a review to do.
I'll be so mad. I will write an angry email.
We'll hold a eulogy before we start the review next Thursday. I
Yeah.
kid you not. If that's the case, we will dress in black.
Seriously.
Like, we have come here today to remember the short-lived greatness that was Joya.
Yep. Light my candle, my prayer candle over here.
Oh my gosh. But overall, this is what I needed from this type of stipulation of match. Just fun and
Yep.
goofiness. Again, Kevin Knight to
Crazy.
me is MVP with all the
Yeah.
how much he showcased here. It was
Oh, and PCO too.
oh my gosh, PCO died when he got pushed off. I was like, oh, he went on the mat. Oh, he fell to the floor. Oh god, he's dead. But he's not because he's the monster.
I love even, and I never caught it before. Is when he was making his entrance, and it, like they put the title underneath as you're coming in. It says "not human." Did you see that?
I love the intangibles of wrestling like cards when people come in. It is hilarious. Oh, before we move on, I also forgot to talk about, because we brought him up during that women's segment, Jay Vidal being the gayest thing on television.
Oh my
Literally, God. Bhupinder Gujar was so turned off when he was in the corner with Jay Vidal and started to like Jay was just like giving the gay gaze. I was like, oh my gosh, they went there.
Oh my god! Yeah, when he like got all sassy with PCO, yeah, it was all like
that was the thing of beauty.
It touched his chin. I did all that. It just goes. Ugh.
And then, if I remember correctly, too, like the crowd cheered for him because I think he like bitch slapped Macklin, and that was great.
He bitch slapped Macklin,
and then he got choked out by Johnny Swinger, who is also the second gayest thing on the show.
And he was down. It's so funny because he was down on the floor through most of it. And I was like, oh, that's good. He can stay down there because he gives me creepy vibes. So I was like, you stay down there. But yeah, I was kind of impressed with Jay Vidal. I was like, oh, look at him. He's wrestling. Good for him. Aw.
I loved his boy. I love his hair being put in like miniature Afro poofs.
Oh my god, it was probably the gayest thing out there.
And I'm here for. I was here for it
for sure.
This was a fun match.
It was a lot of fun. I enjoyed this match. I truly did. And I the funny thing about it is, of course, this is coming from theatrics because I'm a theater professor, and I was just watching a lot of them. And it was just, and this is what I love about wrestling. Like my dad used to call it wrestling. Is when they were going to climb the trellis, to get to the briefcase, they take their time getting up those ropes, and then they get to the top, and they're like, oh. I might lose my balance. I'm like, get your ass up there. It's like, oh, wait, I have to wait because someone's got to pull me down. I can't get there too fast. I was crying. I was like, because they're so intense and they're so into it. And it's like this, I was laughing so hard. I loved it. I really enjoyed this match. It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
And this was a good chunk of time. It was like a 25-minute match.
But it didn't feel like it.
No, and I'm sad. I was like, honestly, I could have gotten like half an hour for this.
We could have done a lot longer, I think. They could have done a whole lot more. Because there were a lot of people on the floor that never got into the ring.
Mm-hmm.
That we never even saw and really saw on camera. We saw them in the background. But there was a lot of people.
Like I said, Kevin Knight stole the show for me because he got a lot of screen time and a lot of offense throughout this match. Him and Kushida both.
And that has to be saying something.
I hope Kevin Knight continues to get pushed, if anything.
I like him. I like him a lot.
I know. I was just like, I known Kevin Knight, through the New Japan stuff because he's fairly new and he's part of the LA dojo for New Japan, but seeing him in Impact, honestly, has been such a good thing for him. And I hope Impact decides to keep pushing him and to keep him for a little bit because he's great in the ring.
And it's cute.
I mean, of course.
This is like my Chris Bay.
Gosh, I'm excited to see the results, to see what happens next week with all that. But this was a fun match. So I guess we end hour one because like I had to make sure I was checking my timestamps. I'm like, oh damn, we're already halfway through the show at this point. So we ended hour one with Mackenzie backstage, and she is interviewing Chris Sabin, and we're building up towards the main event, which is Chris versus Leo for the X Division Championship, and this is where Chris gives his promo. It did its purpose. I've heard Chris give this promo many times before, but it's okay.
Yeah.
And then we start off hour two, and listen, I wasn't expecting like a 5-star match from this team, but I wanted something more. So Desi Hit Squad versus Team 3D, which is Bully Ray and Devon. Devon, I love you. Bully, I love you, but this was not it. And I can't fault them too much because Devon has been retired from the ring for a little bit. And he looks great though. He looks so much better than when I last saw him. I was like, good on you, Devon. Like, get it. I support wrestlers that want to get healthy. Also, I think if I remember correctly, he says that DDP yoga saved his life, and Lord have mercy, Diamond Dallas Page's yoga program is saving wrestling legend lives left and right. Because there are so many legends that attribute DDP yoga to keeping them alive and getting them healthy. I was like, Diamond Dallas Page, we salute you, sir. Also, by the way, if you have not seen what Diamond Dallas Page looks like now, the man's is still in shape. And yes, as a bisexual man, I would let him hit that. But yeah, this Team 3D match with Desi Hit Squad, it was okay. I don't know why I was expecting more, but you know, it was okay. I wanted more tables. That's exactly. I think that was the problem. I wanted more tables.
Well, yeah, you always want more tables. I mean, this match was. This match, it did not hold my attention. I was like, okay, all right. Introduce. I wasn't, they introduced them. Nothing about it got me excited. Nothing. I mean, it was like, oh, okay. Then the match happened, and I was like, well, all right. Okay, that was cool. What's next? I mean, there wasn't any. I don't think there was any truly like super outstanding moments in this match. Like truly. I mean, and that may be harsh. I mean, I didn't even take any notes on it because I was like, it's like, so I don't know. I was like, we came off the big match, the big crazy fun match, and then we get Chris Sabin backstage looking like the grumpy old man, like get off my lawn, and then we go into this match, and it just like kind of went, yeah. It's like, what Impact? What are you doing to me? What are you doing to me?
I know, Impact, man. Like, we're giving you the benefit of doubt and hoping that next week is going to be better. But this Team 3D wins. I don't want to talk about this match anymore. It made me sad.
No, move on.
Move on. Okay, so then for me personally, this is where I started having so many questions. So Josh Alexander comes to the ring, and I like Josh. He's nice to look at, yes, but I also like him as a wrestler. This promo was weird. Well, okay, let me start by saying, at least when it was Josh by himself, like I thought this was pretty decent. I was like, okay, you know, he's finally getting addressed to the crowd now that he's back because he really hasn't had a chance to do so. And he begins talking about the history of Impact and naming all the greats, including the Motor City Machine Guns, which is Alex Shelley and Chris Sabin. And I was like, okay, cool. And then Alex Shelley comes out. I was like, okay, we're going to have a playful back and forth, set up like a potential feud. I was so confused, Will, when Alex Shelley came in as hard as he did and was like full blown heel. I'm like, oh my God. Like, there was no work up to this. There was like nothing being built to this because the last two pay-per-views, Alex Shelley has been one of the faces. And I know him and Josh had a problem during their match at Emergence, but like, oh my goodness. Alex Shelley came in full heel, and for me personally, I was like, I saw that the heel tendencies were there, but holy hell, did he come in as hard as he did? And this back and forth was so weird. Like Alex was like telling Alex was telling Josh, it's just literally, it's just like, oh, I don't like you. I hate you. Like, this is whack. You're dumb. It was literally like a high school fight, and Josh just kept replying. He's like, no, man, I respect you. You're awesome. You're great. And I was so confused because I felt like they were giving two different promos for two different occasions, and none of it made any sense to me. I oh I I don't know what to say. I was so confused. And then on top of that, the Rascals suddenly come out and attack both Alex Shelley and Josh Alexander. And then Alex Shelley just ups and leaves while Josh is like taken out by the Rascals. And that's how we kind of ended that segment. I have never been more confused by a promo than I was from this segment. I cannot believe that this was something that happened this week. And I want to take a moment for for the audience that is watching this. I know eventually we're going to get Josh versus Alex, and I'm expecting that match to be phenomenal. But I'm just like, I don't know. This was a weird ass promo, and I have so many more questions than I do answers.
So, okay. Sorry, I was talking with my husband there. This irritated me as much as a lot of things did in this episode. I mean, here comes and I know you've already spoken, so I'll just touch on it. Josh Alexander comes out, doing great. Then Shelley comes out, and Josh is all, "Oh my gosh, you're my hero," blah blah blah. And then Shelley turns into a total dick, and I'm just like, I didn't understand it. I didn't understand why. Because I mean, is okay? Is Shelley? Are they? See, I don't even know how to word it because I'm so confused on it. So, are they bringing Shelley in to, like you were saying, turn him into a heel? Is that what they're doing? I mean, is he having a villain arc starting right now?
But
Because
I mean, that's what it seems like. But to me, it's
but it doesn't make any sense.
no, and because like I said, now if this had been like slowly building up to this over the last couple months, then I would have been like, okay, cool,
Yeah,
because we would see the progression. Now I
this came out
know
of
that
nowhere.
I know Alex and Josh had a miscommunication at their emergence match when they did the 8-man, but
But
like between emergence and now,
what
like,
happened?
nah, I don't get it.
I don't either. This it didn't make any damn sense to me. It made absolutely no damn sense because it was like it was great, and then it was like awful because Shelley was just. I mean, and it's so funny because it was like even as he was saying what he was saying, I was like, it was almost like, are you actually saying that, or is someone like speaking that into your ear? Because it was like it just felt so forced, and I'm like, where is this coming from? Because yeah, I mean, if it had been building up over several episodes and maybe a couple of pay-per-views, I would have been like, oh, okay, I see where this is coming from. I don't know where this came from. I mean, is it just out of spite, or is Shelley jealous of something, or I mean, I don't even know. Because I mean, if it's simple as that, then you're making Shelley out to be a complete and utter douchebag. And I mean, truly going like he's moving into a villain arc, and which is fine. But can you tell me why? Because I don't know. I have no clue. In all of that, even when the Rascals came in and start whooping on him, and And then there was that moment where they knocked both the Rascals down, and then they had that face off again in the middle of this. And it was like, I don't understand what's happening. I truly don't get it. And I really don't freaking understand why the freaking Rascals came wandering in there for no damn reason. Was it just because of,
The small
lip service? I mean, from backstage, or
that again, the motivation was weird because like Josh just threw Trey Miguel's backpack. That was it. Also, not upset that I got to see more of Trey Miguel this episode. Hey,
well, true,
but again, that backstage interaction that was not warranted for the. Now, I would have understood if the Rascals decided to beat up just Josh because
yeah.
but they beat up Shelley for no reason too. I was like, what is happening?
And then he left and let them whoop up on
See,
Josh.
I think it would have been a more powerful statement if, Josh is getting beat up by the Rascals and Alex was watching on and then he leaves. I was like, solidify the heel turn like that.
Yes.
That would have been better. But
It made no
him
sense.
getting jumped and then leaving doesn't
Yeah,
help
made
the
no
cause.
sense. I was like, why didn't you stay and whoop their asses and then finish your conversation with Josh? No, he didn't. They turned, and it was so funny because he was in the ring with them, but they both of the Rascals focused on Josh, and he was just like, "I'm out, see ya." And then then he just watched as he walked up the ramp, and I was like, "What is going on here? I don't understand what the hell's going on." And then all this, then suddenly we get the announcement a little bit later about Josh facing off against Trey Miguel, and it's like, what? When did that happen? Like, I don't even know, when did the altercation happen where one of them says, "Hey, you and me next week"? I mean, like,
the announcement to this match was messy because we did kind of get it, but we'll just jump into this now. So backstage, we see the Rascals and Shark Boy. So Shark Boy is just like, it seems that as y'all want to get into the business. So Trey, you and Josh will have a match next week. I was just like, okay, sure. This was a whole mess. I was just like,
yeah, it was.
It was a whole mess. We discussed it. And then, oh my gosh, I felt so bad because as soon as the Rascals left, then we have Kenny King come up to Santino of all people. And honestly, I'm kind of on Kenny King's side. He's like, this is some bullshit. Like, why am I not getting my rematch for the title? And I was like, why is he not getting his rematch for the title, Santino? Kenny King needs that title back as soon as he can because I still don't think Tommy Dreamer should be holding that title. And I said it on our Victory Road review, the pay per view review. And Santino's like, you will get your rematch eventually. I'm like, good. I was just like, normally I'm not here for the heels because their reasoning is kind of off. But I'm sitting here, I was just like, you know what? I kind of agree with Kenny King on all the points he made.
Yeah, I was like, I did too.
I was shocked. I was like, oh my God, Kenny is speaking facts. And I'm actually agreeing with him. Maybe that's my personal disdain because I don't want Tommy Dreamer to have this title he shouldn't have. I'm like, give it back to Kenny King. I was like, or if you're not going to have Tommy defend it, let him give it to Heath. And then Heath versus Kenny is something I would pay to see.
I would pay money for that.
So that was that segment. And then we get the match. This was obviously, I knew this was going to go shorter because Tracy Brooks is retired. So she's not like wrestling all the time like Alicia is. But we had the Edwards, which is Eddie Edwards and his wife, Alicia Edwards, taking on the married couple of Frankie Kazarian and Tracy Brooks. I don't know what I expected from this match.
I expected more from this match.
Yeah.
I was actually very excited for this match because, the Edwards committed assault on poor Frankie at the gym, 2 against 1. And they have just been running their mouths and they have just been disrespectful to people. And then Mr. Edwards himself, he has been laying hands on the ladies lately. And I'm like, no siree. And no ma'am. You do not approach a woman like you're gonna kill her. Cause that's a big no-go for me. Like, If you want to fight a woman, then you fight her evenly. You fight her fair and square in this ring. You do not sneak up on them. You do not. And he's a creeper. I am sorry, but he is a creeper. And his wife is psycho. like, and I was, I was, I was hopeful and I was thankful that Frank and Tracy won this match. But again in this match, Edwards and his wife just whooped on him. I'm like, Frankie, what the fuck are you doing? I mean, it was like he wasn't even trying. And I have to say, his wife came in and saved his ass.
Listen, I'm just like,
I was so disappointed.
yeah,
This could have been a spectacular match.
it really could have, and I'm disappointed. I mean, Frankie and Tracy end up winning as they should, but I wanted more.
Yep.
Um, this next part though, I will admit, is kind of sweet. So, because Tracy, I come to learn that
Yeah, this was nice.
she had no idea this was gonna happen, but
No.
Frankie gets on the mic, he talks for a bit, and then he has everyone turn to the screen where we see a little nice video package of Tracy Brooks's career and the narration. And then we get the announcement that at Bound for Glory, which is when they do their Hall of Fame inductee ceremony, that Tracy Brooks will be inducted into the Impact Wrestling Hall of Fame. And then Tracy had no idea. She started crying, and so that made me
Yeah.
tear up a little bit.
Yeah, me too.
Because Tracy Brooks is quintessentially known as the original knockout. So she and the rest of the first generation of women in Impact and TNA at that time really brought women's wrestling to the forefront for the company. And I love that Frankie and their child were celebrating with her. It was a beautiful moment.
Yeah, it really was.
So I was like, I can't knock it for that. This match was not as great as I thought it would, but the ending was very nice. Then we cut backstage really quickly to Leo Rush giving his promo, which, again, served its purpose. I don't really want to talk about it because it's the same thing that kind of Chris Sabin did.
But he is a disrespectful little bitch. I mean, first of all, you can, and I would be like, you can be disrespectful to each other. That is absolutely normal. But you don't be disrespectful to the people doing the reporting. That's some bullshit. First of all, they ain't got anything against you, so you need to pull that attitude back, bitch. I was just like, no, ma'am. It pissed me off when he was talking to her like that. I was like, excuse me? Your mama obviously didn't slap you enough. Because if I had ever talked to a woman like that when I was a kid, man, my grandfather would have knocked me across 3 states. I mean, no, ma'am. Oh, he just really just got under my skin, which is good, and I'm glad because I was like, finally, we got something going on tonight.
And it made it even better, the results of what we got in our main event, which we'll get to.
So, yeah. But, he pissed me off.
Oh, for sure. So, before the main event, we do get bumpers for next week's part 2 of the 1000th episode. And honestly, I hope it redeems itself. So, listen, even though the way we got this match was kind of garbage, Josh versus Trey is going to be a thing of. I hope on paper it's great. Trey and Josh are so good.
Josh schools his ass.
Oh, definitely. I don't see Josh losing this. I think it's going to be a great match. We'll also find out like the results of the Feast or Fired briefcases, so that should be fun. The Ultimate X match is returning next week, so the participants in that match look so good. You have Talon Angels, Speedball Mike Bailey. You have Zachary Wentz of the Rascals. Yeah. You have such a bunch of people in it.
Yeah,
I'm excited for that. And then they didn't say it, but I hope it's the main event. The 10 women tag match.
Yeah, I hope so too.
God, I hope that match main events, and I hope the women kick all the ass because that'd be great. But
yeah, I'll be very angry if they open it with that.
I'll be disappointed. Don't do what the rest of these promotions do and open with the women's match, and that's it. Lord have
Yeah,
mercy. There's too much talent on these
yeah,
teams to not put them
way
in the
too
main event.
much.
Seriously. Speaking of
Yeah.
main events, our main event for part one of Impact's 1000th episode is for the X Division Championship, where we see Lio Rush defending the title against Chris Sabin. Hands down, from a technical standpoint, this was my match of the night. Like,
Yep.
obviously, no, hands down. Feast or
Yep.
Fired was a lot of fun, but that was more of
Yep.
an entertainment match.
Yep.
Wrestling wise,
This was
no
it.
contest. This was the match of the
Yeah.
night.
Yes. Before we get into this, did you talk about um, Tommy Dreamer's backstage bit?
Oh my gosh, I forgot that was a thing because of how quick it was. Oh man.
Okay, I didn't know if you mentioned it and I just missed it.
No. But man, again, I'm still upset that Tommy Dreamer beat Kenny King for that title. I was just like, no. And then the backstage segment didn't help either.
No. I'm just, it just makes me sad. Every time I see him, it just makes me sad. And I'm just like, I'm just like, dude, just give it up. Do a big announcement that you're retiring and you're going to hand the title off to whoever and make a big to do about it. How, I fought, I won, now I'm going home. And he was just back, and it's so funny is it's like when he was giving his little thing backstage, he wasn't talking like someone who just won a title. He was very much like, well, I'm just so. It was like, oh my god,
It's like, sir, you put your career on the line. You should. I'm
you
not
should be
expecting you to
like,
be. I'm not expecting you to be full blown tears, but
no,
I want you to be like, I proved myself, and now I'm going
yeah,
to continue to deserve it. Like, I have
yeah,
lie and say it's just like this has reignited a passion, and I'm going to show
yeah,
that despite my age, I still have what it takes. And
yes,
then I
because I
would have been
was,
like, okay, you know
jeez,
what? I'm kind of here for it.
yeah,
But
I would have
no,
been too.
no.
No, it was boo hooey again. And I'm like, oh, for crying out loud, dude. You just won that title. Get on board. I was like, be excited about it. I mean, be like, hey, I've got a new fire in me. I am ready to take on whoever there. Who wants to come next? You want to come next? You want to come next? Come on, I'm here. Take me on. But it wasn't. It was like, oh, here's this belt. And, oh, my horrible things that have happened in my life. And I was like, oh my God. What? And again, this is another one of those whys. Why did we have this? Why?
Oh my
I mean,
goodness.
I like the man. Don't get me wrong. It's just like, but this is just making him look pathetic. So whoever's programming this, they need to stop because it literally is making me sad. I can't watch it. It gets to the point where I'm like, okay, I need to fast forward through this.
And
So
uh
anyway, I just wanted to touch on that before we got to the end. But
but yeah, so back to this main event, which is again my hands down my match of the night.
mhm.
That opening sequence with Lio Rush like crab walking his way through around the ring and just him and Chris Sabin going back and forth, I was like, oh, we're in for a treat.
Oh yeah,
There were so many close finishes this whole entire match.
a shit ton. I
And
mean,
I was like going back and forth. I'm like, I don't know who's gonna win this one. Like it can go either way, and I'm here for it.
I didn't know either. I was very much like, what?
The last 5 minutes specifically, like the sequence that we got was nuts.
Yeah, it
So
was.
so this kind of begins. So towards the finishing sequence, Chris gives this clothesline and follows up with one of his finishers, the cradle shock. But
Yep.
Lio Rush kicks out of it somehow at 2, and then Leo kind of scratches Chris's eyes and then hits his finisher, the final hour. But Chris kicks out of that. Chris hits the shell shock finisher. So this finishing sequence is crazy because they kept hitting finishers and they didn't work. But then Chris finally gets Leo, hits him with the shell shock, then hits him with the cradle shock for good measure, and then literally and becomes the 10-time X Division champion. Chris Sabin has dethroned Leo Rush, and has become the 10-time X Division champion, holding the record for the most X Division champions. And what I loved is watching a lot of the men's locker room come out and celebrate with Chris.
Yep.
Also, I saw Jake something in that little mob of
I
people.
did
I was just
too.
like, I was just like, literally, I had my jaw had to be picked up off the floor. I was
I
just
know,
like,
right?
I saw Jake something. I was just like, everybody's dressed in their regular pedestrian clothes. Jake something was in his wrestling gear because we come to
Mhm.
find out in the bumpers he is wrestling next week. Again, I hope he beats Dirty Dingo's ass all up and
Yeah,
down the ring. But
right.
honestly, I paused and in the words of Kevin E. Davenport, I needed a moment because I was just like,
That man's fine.
I was like, Jake is so healthy right now. He is toned up, and I will let that man do whatever
That
he
man's
wants to me.
fine. Yeah, he can do whatever he wants.
Step on
He
me,
can pin me
senpai.
down anytime he wants.
But it was so nice to see the locker room come out and
It
celebrate
was.
Chris's historic thing.
It
And I
was.
mean, that's how we go off the air for part 1 of this 1000th episode. So, again, um even though this is kind of like an out of canon, not part of the regular storyline episode, I still want to grade it. So I'm gonna use my other co-host Luis's scale out of 5 empanadas. Honestly, I'm gonna give this like a 2.5 empanadas out of 5. Like I was so disappointed with this. Again, nothing was inherently bad, but I was so underwhelmed. Like the matches we did get in terms of like matches. I don't count Feast or Fire because that was entertainment, and I was entertained in that 25-minute match.
Yep.
But the actual matches, Desi Hit Squad and Team 3D, the Edwards and Frankie and Tracy was not what I wanted. It did not live up. The main event literally saved this from becoming like a 1 out of 5 empanadas for me. That main event saved
Yeah.
it, but it was a stretch. The women's segment was phenomenal. It just went on way too long. And a lot of the use of the legends in this episode did not work for me. I wanted more or like, and we're talking Impact. And I have my problems with WWE as a company, but at least they utilize their legends in a better way in funny skits and segments because this wasn't that great. So overall, for those reasons, that is why I give this 2.5 empanadas out of 5 for this week's episode of Impact.
Well, I'm giving it 2 because I think that it was a mistake to create a standalone with this. I think they should have created this 1,000th because here's why I say it. A lot of people be like, well, it's whatever. Here's why I say it. Because why pull out an anniversary episode from your main story when you could celebrate your main story with your anniversary episode? That is not what we got. They could have put the 1,000th episode in the actual Impact storyline, brought in the veterans, included them in the whatever storylines going on, having them help certain people. Maybe they come in and foul up a scene, a match, or they come in and they help, or they could just use them that way because a lot of them were not used at all, like truly. And I think that they could have celebrated Impact in its normal storyline. They could have created some amazing moments between where veterans come in and are like, hey, I've been here before. You want to be careful of this, this, and this. Or hey, I guess, or even teamed them up in certain aspects and brought them in and did this and that. I would have been here for that. And it would keep the story rolling to our next pay-per-view. But see, now it's like we're taking 2 episodes, pulling them out of the main storyline to the pay-per-view, and they don't mean anything. And that bugs me. It's literally like these 2 episodes are blow-off episodes with veterans. And to me, that's a disrespect to the veterans. It's like, oh, we're going to bring you back, but we're going to do you wrong. And it's like, I mean, I'm all for the funny skits. Don't get me wrong, but they got to be funny. They weren't funny, so I think they really kind of dropped the ball on this one. And I am too. I'm with the lineup we have for next week. I really hope it's good. I really do. I mean, because poor, Leo and Chris Sabin had to carry this whole episode on their backs. Truly. Because you're right, none of the other matches were up to par. And the women's thing was cool, but we didn't get a match out of it, like in present time. I was hoping we'd get some scrapping going on in that ring, and the security would have to come in and break everybody up or something. I mean, that's what I was hoping for. That would have been a hell of an opener right there. And then they could have been like, yeah, well, you'll have to come back next week to see all these women come at each other at this. And then they could have announced the match. And I just think it was just missed opportunity after missed opportunity after missed opportunity. And I really, it took me a lot. I had to like stop and walk away several times because it was boring at times. And I was like, oh man, that tag team. After that tag team was done with the Team 3D and the daisy chains or whatever, I paused it and I was like, I need to go do something else because I can't sit here and I can't do it. And so yeah, it was just minus 2 empanadas out of 5 because it was just bad programming, just bad overall.
Oh my goodness.
And I was so freaking excited that Chris Sabin kicked Leela Rush's ass. I was like, yes, thank you.
That was definitely a highlight, and we both agree that the Feast or Fired was so fun. It was so fun. And I hope the X Division, the Ultimate X match does the same thing next week.
Yeah.
But that is going to be it for our Table for Two review this week. A little bit of a letdown for Impact, but that's okay because hopefully next week, if they could turn it around and redeem themselves, I will forgive, but I will not forget what we saw tonight. And I don't want to take away because that main event rocked. That main event was so good. But everything else was okay. It wasn't inherently wrong. It was just at best. It was at best.
Yeah.
But if you like this long form review, you can check out other Table for Two reviews as well as other reviews for all the weekly shows that we got going on here at the Biconics YouTube channel. You can also check out our pay-per-view reviews. Me and Will, the latest one, we reviewed Victory Road from Impact Wrestling, which we thought was a really phenomenal show and was very fun and excellent. You can also check us out all over the social medias at BC WrestlePod to stay up to date when these videos go live, as well as some behind-the-scenes stuff. And then if you just want to hear us even talk about more wrestling in a more chaotic format, make sure to check us out at the Biconics Wrestling Podcast, where we talk anything and everything wrestling. We're about to have a very fun one coming up soon, so make sure that you follow the socials and follow where podcasts can be found. We're pretty much everywhere. In the immaculate words of, rappers out here, we're pimping ourselves out to everybody. And you can officially now follow us on Facebook at the Biconics Wrestling Podcast Facebook page. Listen, Facebook is for toxic political arguments and your grandma who just learned how to use the internet for the first time, which is the perfect place for us to pimp ourselves out for this. Yes. Give us a like, give us a follow, give us hit that bell notification, subscribe to everything. Make sure to share it with your friends and then leave a comment below. We would love to have a conversation with you guys. But until the next Table for Two review, this has been Mikey, joined always by my lovely co-host Will. And until next time, we'll see you later. But until then, ta-ta for now.